Episode 38, Part 2, Knoxville Christian Film Festival. Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today we have an incredible journey to share with you. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this episode. Would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes, and we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to this podcast interview. Today's guest is Rob Ekno, a multi-award-winning author, screenwriter, and broadcaster. He has been a member of the Screen Actors Guild since 1995. Rob spent 15 years as a producer and host of TV shopping programs that aired across the globe. After 30 years in Hollywood, Rob recently ventured into his new home in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he became the founding director of the 2024 inaugural Knoxville International Christian Film Festival to provide a much-needed avenue for creative Christians from around the world to be recognized for their works, honoring God in the spirit of excellence and service. Submissions began on July the 2nd and have come quickly from Italy, Sweden, China, Alaska, Virginia, Tennessee, and other parts of the globe. Let's welcome Rob Ekno to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Welcome, Rob.
Oh, Anthony, great to see you. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. My first time doing a New Zealand podcast. This is very exciting.
Absolutely. There's always a first time.
Yes. Because I just have a funny feeling you're going to ask me about the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival that I recently became the director of. So here's another thing that shows you, Anthony, that whether you call it the universe, God for me, it has a plan if you'll just be good enough to not think that it doesn't, right? So here goes this. So about 6 years ago, I'm writing that book I told you about, Is It God or Coincidence, at a coffee shop right next to Warner Brothers, Universal Studios, right in the heart of all of a lot of Hollywood activity. And so I'm writing this book, and 2 seats over from me is a gal named Kimberly. Now, I don't know this person, never met her, but she was casting a play, and she had actors coming in and out all day long. And at the end, I said, I saw her by herself, and I'm like, well, I'm an actor, I might be able to help her out as well. And so I went over and introduced myself, and she happens to be a screenwriter as well. So we start talking, and we become friends. And we we talked a few times over the last few years, but not on a huge basis. But we're good enough friends, that we talk every once in a while. But I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years, and so keep that in mind. Then I end up getting this bad leg injury, and I was out of work. And while I was out of work, a doctor at USC, Southern Cal University, said to me, he said, you should find a massage therapist who could really work on your leg and stimulate the blood flow and all that. So I said, well, I don't want to just go to one of these, big chain massage therapists. I want to go to where they're just worried about getting you in and out. I want to go to somebody who's really good at what they do. Not that they're not, but I just wanted a private person. So I called my best buddy, Johnny, and I said, Johnny, you're dating a fitness trainer. You must know somebody, or she must know somebody that's a pretty good massage therapist that can work on my leg. And he said, she told me you need to call this gal, Monique, because Monique is someone who prays to Jesus before she works on you so that his healing hands come into her healing hands and they work on you together. So I call her, and I go and I start hanging out with her, and all of a sudden I realize she is a brilliant writer. So I started this other series, the Cruising Toward Heaven series. So I'm writing that. David, still designing the book covers for me and stuff from the last book. She now becomes my copy editor. And she was brilliant. And she had me break things up and do this. And so now we have this whole series for the Cruising Toward Heaven series. And then she invites me to a church she was going to. And so I went there, and through that, I met this beautiful proofreader who was proofreading stuff. Anthony, I'm not Catholic, but it was a Catholic church. She was proofreading something for the Archbishop for the Diocese of Los Angeles. And she said, "Hey, I heard that you're writing a book." She goes, I'm a proofreader, and I'm finishing up a project for the Archbishop of Los Angeles. And if you would like, after I'm done in a couple of days, I'll be happy to give an extra set of eyes on your book if you want. I'll bless you, no charge. And that's how the next one got done. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyways, these books got put together. And then I thought, you know what? I want to enter them in a couple of contests. So I enter one of them, Is It God or Coincidence, in a contest. It was one of 6 finalists out of nearly 1,000 books. So that got its honored. Then I entered the Cruising Toward Heaven, my first one, which was my story of my life's testimony. So that won the International Impact Book Award for addiction and recovery. And then the other one I told you about, the 2024 Christian Book Award for adult nonfiction. So now I have 3 award-winning books. From those, I was sharing my stories in Hollywood recovery meetings, and some of the people there said, you really need to make movies out of those books. They're all faith-based books. They need to be movies. And so I don't know how to write a script, never written a script. Wouldn't you know it, a friend of mine calls up. He happens to be a screenwriting professor. He says to me, while I was out of work on that leg injury near the end, he says, "Hey, I'm shooting a short film. I need some people to go eat popcorn in a movie theater as part of the scene." He goes, "I don't have any money. I can't pay you." He said, "But, can you just go eat some popcorn for me?" And I'm like, dude, I said, I haven't been on a set in like 3.5 years. I'd be happy to just go over and eat popcorn on a thing. Well, wouldn't you know it, Anthony, they were shooting it at a place called the Miracle Theater. I don't know why my computer does that. I'm not doing that stuff with the balloon. When you move your hands, it does it. I don't know what it does. Anyways, I'm not doing that. But it was at the Miracle Theater. So I get there, and so I was ready to go there, and he calls me and he says, "Dude, you can't go eat popcorn in that thing because you can't do that anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I got COVID. So the Screen Actors Guild won't let me on the set, and I wrote a part for me as a regular actor." He goes, "So you're going to go have to play my part now." So now I get to go play his part. So instead of just sitting in an audience with a bunch of folks eating popcorn, I'm now with the stars of the thing, and I become one of the cast members.
Wow.
So now I'm standing next to all the cast members and the photographers, director of photography, and they all start talking about a faith-based film they had just worked on down in Alabama. And I'm like, really? And I start talking to them. And I called the writer friend, John, the next day, and I said, "Dude, you'd never guess. So these people, everybody's telling me I should write faith-based films, and all these people were part of a production crew on a faith-based film." And he goes, "Dude, how come you've never just asked me to write the film for you?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "I'll write it for you." I go, "Well, I didn't know you were a faith-based person or not." And he goes, "I'll write it for you, dude." So he starts writing the movie. It wasn't quite, he was kind of changing the book a lot, and I wasn't quite really digging that. So I said to him that, and he said, "You know what? I have someone who I know who just wrote a screenplay, a faith-based film, to graduate college. She's a brilliant writer, and she gave her thesis as a faith-based film. Why don't I hook you up with her and see if you two can't get together?" Well, now we have 3 award-winning film scripts based on my books. All right. So now we have the award-winning books, and we have award-winning film plays. And I also happened to see on a Facebook ad one Friday morning a couple of years ago that they were shooting a faith-based film in Las Vegas. and when I was still living in Los Angeles, and they were looking for people to be part of a gala at the producer's house. Well, I wanted to sell some scripts, right? So I called them. I said, "Do you mind if I drive out and be a part of that? I'm a Christian author, and I have this." And they said, "Oh, we'd love to have you here." Well, I got there and they realized I was a SAG actor as well, Screen Actors Guild, and they were doing a SAG film. So they're like, "Here, sign a piece of paper. Let's put you in the film." So I ended up, so through that, I met a wonderful actress who lives in Bristol, Virginia, right across the border here in Tennessee. And that was the only time I met her, because she was a lead in the movie, and I was just doing some stuff in the background and stuff, and I had a small little part that they gave me. So we didn't talk much, but we got phone numbers. And so, anyways, now fast forward, so you have Kimberly that I met by coincidence, Monique that I met by the injury, and now Randa, who was the actress. So I getting set to move out here a few months back to Knoxville, 2,300 miles after 30 years in Hollywood. And Kimberly calls me out of the blue and she says, "Hey, Rob, are you going to the NRB convention in Nashville in February?" And this is the end of November. And I said, "Well, I don't even know what that is." And she said, "National Religious Broadcasters." I said, "Oh, okay." She goes, "You should really go because they look for authors with books. They look for screenplays to make films out of, TV shows. You should really go there." I said, "Well, the funny thing is, Kimberly, we haven't spoken in a while, but I'm moving to Knoxville in a couple of weeks. So I'm only going to be 3 hours from there." And I said, I'll just drive up there and I'll get the cheap ticket and walk around and meet people. Well, wouldn't you know that I meet this lady, Dorothy, who owns a Christian TV station 6 hours away in Augusta, Georgia. She invites me to come down on April 16th of this year to be a guest on her 2-hour show that she's been doing for 40 years that broadcasts around the world. So I'm like, okay, I will be happy to do that. Then I enter my book into the awards, the one I told you about, the nonfiction one, and they were having a red carpet ceremony in Newport News, Virginia, which is 9 hours from me. Mm. And the guy contacts me, he says, "Sir, we're having an award show in Newport News, Virginia, and you're invited. Your book won the award. We're having a red carpet event." And he said, "You also, 2 of your movie scripts have won awards in our film festival. And we're going to combine them and make it easy for people. And we're going to have both of them on the same day. If you want to come up," he said, "but if not, I'll just send you certificates and your awards in the mail and stuff like that." And then we're going to have that on April 27th. So we have Dorothy on April 16th, April 27th. All of a sudden, the guy calls me a couple of days later, said, "Sir, our venue got closed that day. It's not available to us. We have to move it to April 20th, a week earlier." So I looked, and I have this amazing fiance. And I said to her, I said, I think, because I'm new to this area, right? I have no idea where the heck I'm going. I said, "I think it would be easier for me to drive to Georgia and then up to Virginia the next day and come home if I could." So I called Dorothy and I say, "Dorothy, my schedule got changed from the 27th to the 20th. Any chance I can do your show on the 19th instead of the 16th? They called me back a couple of days later, said, "We worked it out for you, Rob. You can come in and be the guest on the 19th. So now I go down to Georgia on a Thursday. I drive there 8 hours, stay overnight, and get to the studio at 9 in the morning the next day on Friday to do this show. It's a 2-hour show. Dorothy talks to her daughter and son-in-law for the first half hour. Then they bring me out. While we're in a commercial break, Dorothy shows me there was a husband and wife couple there. And Dorothy said, "You see those people over there? They were getting divorced. And I brought them back together. And this is their first performance together, reunited. And the name of their group is called New Purpose." So here I am looking for my purpose, wondering why God brought me across country after 30 years. And what's interesting is the week before, I had called Randa and said, "Why do you think God brought me 2,300 miles out of Hollywood into Knoxville?" And she said, I believe he's going to elevate you to new heights of a man that he's never taken you before. So now I got this message in my head from her, and I'm sitting in front of New Purpose, who's going to be singing in between commercial breaks. So they introduced me, I come on, and they introduce New Purpose, and I'm there for an hour and a half, 90 minutes. I get done with the show, and Dorothy looks at me and says, just want to let you know. She said, I've been doing this show for 40 years. Never once have I let a guest stay for more than 15 minutes. She said, you stayed the whole show. I'm thinking the prayer lines must have been going pretty good in the back office or something like that. Whatever I was filled with that day, the goodness that I had prayed for to be able to share was working. So here I am now, New Purpose, looking for my new purpose, and I got New Purpose sitting right in front of me. So remember, all of this happened by chance, right? I by chance meet Kimberly. She by chance calls me out of the blue. I by chance get to Monique to fix my leg, who now edits my books, who become award-winning books. I'm at the Miracle Theater, which starts the process of writing the 3 award-winning scripts, right? So now I leave Dorothy, I drive 10 hours, again, never been here, all the way up to almost Washington, D.C., and I get there, and the next day I go to the award ceremony. Anthony, I open my car door at a place I've never been in my life, and this guy comes rushing out, and he looks at me and he goes, sir, before you leave today, I have a message that I have been given to give to you, and you cannot leave before you go. And I'm like, message? Who the heck nobody knows me in Newport News, Virginia. I ain't never been here. So we go through the thing, and I do my speeches and whatever you do on a red carpet. They take pictures, and so that gets over. And everybody else was gone. I was the last one there. And he goes, sir, where are you going? He goes, I told you, when everybody else leaves, you have to sit down and listen to me. I have been given a message that you are to hear, and you are to hear it right now. I'm like, who is this guy, right? So I sit down at the table with him. He goes, sit down. And he said, sir, do you know why you're here today? Now, Anthony, as you know, when somebody says to you, do you know why you're here today? If you thought you were there to win the bicycle and take it home, you probably aren't there to win the bicycle and take it home. So he looks at me and he said, sir, you are a multi-award-winning author. You're a multi-award-winning screenwriter. You're an award-winning broadcaster. You've been a member of the Screen Actors Guild since 1995. You act in faith-based films. I have been told to tell you that you are immediately to drive back to Knoxville and start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival and the Knoxville Christian Book Awards in order to open up another avenue for creative Christians to be able to have their works honored for God, because there are not a lot of avenues that provide that. And you are the guy with all of your experience, all of your awards. You're the one that is supposed to do this. And I was like, whoa, it kind of doesn't get more direct than that. A stranger who you've never met tells you this is what you're supposed to do when I'm looking for my new purpose, which I wouldn't have had the new purpose had he not changed his date. And Dorothy, as you saw, right, anybody who's watching, listen, you probably so God had this thing lined up, Anthony, a minimum of 6 years earlier. Plus, he sent me to Alaska to get all the stories for the Cruising Toward Heaven books and the movie scripts, right? So it's like whether you, universe or God, whatever you choose, it doesn't matter. Something had me lined up a long time. I choose God. I have a great relationship with him, a personal relationship. And then I write about it. When you read the books, you're like, whoa, that's another great story. That just, these things just don't happen, right? And so there I am. So I'm driving down the freeway to come home, and I call my friend Randa, who also happens to be an amazing graphic designer. And I said, you're never going to guess what happened. And I told her, and she said, oh, man, I know other people that have tried that in Tennessee. And I said, listen, I'm sure they're really wonderful people. I said, but I'm not them. I'm me. I said, you've read my books. You've read my scripts. I said, you've seen me work on I said, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if I'm going to do this, I got to do it right away.
Mm.
And I need a logo. You want to design it. And she's hemming and hawing. I said, you know what? Just pray about it. If you don't want to do it, we're still friends. Don't worry. Just tell me no. Like an hour later, I pull over to a rest area on the freeway and I get out and I check my phone and there's a text message from her. And she said, my husband says I don't need to pray about it. It's a no-brainer. I need to help you right away. And so we designed this beautiful logo, which I sent over to you. In downtown Knoxville, they had the World's Fair in 1982, and they have this big thing. Like if anybody's ever been to the Las Vegas, they have the Stratosphere, and they have this big thing up top. Well, they have the Sun Sphere downtown, and it's just a big thing. You can go up an elevator, and it looks like a big golden dome. And so she designed the fire of God coming out of the Sun Sphere. So like the energy of God is on fire for all of this. So I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it big. And I'll trust that because God's asking me to do it, that he's going to provide everything I need, just like in doing my books, to do this on a much bigger level. Because a normal film festival, for anybody who's watching that doesn't know, normally people make short films because they're trying to sell it to make a feature film. So they'll try to get it into a film festival, and then people will just go there and watch the films, and they'll take a couple of pictures on the red carpet, and somebody, that's been a successful producer will do a little panel in the next room over, and people go home. And I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do something special. And I want to do something, on a big level. So I called it the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival. And Anthony, we started this thing, again, not running a film festival. I've been to plenty of them, and I do have all this other experience for sure, but never run a film festival. But again, just like you did with the podcast, I said, you know what? God told me to do it. Let me build a website. So I went on GoDaddy, and they make it kind of easy for guys like me to be able to at least put something that looks. And I went all around Knoxville, and I was taking pictures of different parts of it so we could have cool pictures on the website and stuff. And I just built it, got it up and running. Within minutes of it going on, you'll never guess what happened. All of a sudden, I got submissions from Italy, Sweden, China, Malaysia, and I even had, and then of course Alaska, Tennessee, Virginia, various parts of America, and I even got one, Anthony, from Iran.
Wow.
So with all of the, the talk about their, whatever they have going on over there, there's people that really want to feel God in their life. And so this guy sends me a long email, this award-winning filmmaker in Iran, and he said, I have this story about me and God, and I would really love to share it, but my monetary system doesn't work with PayPal and the American system. Is there any way that you could allow me a complimentary entry into your festival? And I wrote him back and I said, listen, this is God's festival. It's not mine. If he had you take the time to write an email to me, then surely. I said, just send me the link to your film and let's go. This is, and so I'm hoping that we can create something in the near future that will make it so attractive for people like Anthony from New Zealand and all over the world to want to come to Knoxville for an annual celebration of their works.
Absolutely.
Right. And I want to do it like when all the leaves are changing colors in the fall, because people make a journey just for that. And I want to do it with that. And there's a lot of local musicians who have made it big in country music, but are pretty good, have really good music that's inspiring. And I want to make it so that people will bring their families and really be energized about, honoring their works and being a part of other people's works and make it more than just, okay, well, we showed up, we watched the film, that's great, let's go to dinner next door. Okay, you guys have a nice day, go home. because that's the reality of what a film festival is in most parts, right? And so, and the reality is this: people create these films, and most of them, 95%, will never get sold. And this is a statistic from the Screen Actors Guild. 95% will never get sold at a film festival, and yet that's why everybody goes there, is to try to sell their film. And so knowing this, I said, well, if I know that 95% of people will never get there, what would bring them there? Let's bring them there to support each other and make it other activities and other cool things around East Tennessee, which, if you don't know, is also nicknamed God's country. So why would God bring me to God's country and ask me to do this thing? He obviously must have a plan. So I'm trusting the plan. So anybody that's watching us, listening to us now, who might be a creative type of Christian individual, whether you do feature films, short films, student films, family films. I really want to do family videos. Everybody has a cell phone, right? So I want families to do like family videos. If they do something maybe on a weekly basis, they do together. You know, mom and dad and the two kids, or however big the family unit is. What do you do weekly to just have family fun? I want family videos to promote that, screenplays, soundtracks, people that just create a wonderful, and I say just, but people that take the time to create a wonderful song, and then maybe take your cell phone. Every one of us, right? Pretty much nowadays. I was at a meeting in Hollywood not long ago, and this big giant producer who's done really big shows, he said to us, he said, how many people are creating your own content? And out of 150 people in the room, maybe 20 of us put our hand up. And he said, what is wrong with you people? He said, you're all actors, you're all creative people, and every one of you has a cell phone in your hand. He said, it has a camera on it. He said, just start shooting, make something. Right, Anthony, start the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Just turn on the microphone, Anthony, and start saying something. Don't worry about what you're going to say, right? And then I got a post the other day from James Cameron, who did the Titanic movies and stuff. And he said, folks, he said, just turn on your cell phone, and whether it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your neighbors, whoever, just shoot something. He said, then put a little graphic on the bottom, say, directed by Anthony. He said, now you're a director. He said, everything else after that is just negotiating your fee for the thing and what your next project is.
That's where it starts, doesn't it? Because once you start doing that, then you get in and you enjoy it, and it's a passion. You do more and more and more, and you get better at it.
Well, look at you. When I look at the screen right now, I see the joy of life just oozing out of your eyes. I can see the glow in your face that you have, because you know that you are doing what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
Right. And as you said, you're building an audience, and hopefully a worldwide audience. Right. Yeah. And now because you took the effort to do your first podcast, now you're starting to get better and better each podcast, and you're learning what works better for you, and editing things and doing things live and recording things, all this other stuff that you do, right? And then you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe now I could do webinars, and maybe my guests would want to come back and help me to inspire them. And so once the creative mind starts going, it usually just races off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if it just races off and explodes, and you're like, whoa, I got pieces all over the place, that's okay. You've got pieces.
Yeah.
And then you can start, it's like writing a book. Sometimes chapter 10 is chapter, and I will tell you this, I will say this to the audience. If you're watching right now and listening to Anthony and I, and you've been dying to write that book, you're dying not to write, I simply say this to you. Sit down at your computer, and you just open up Word or whatever program you use to write with, and you just write whatever your first name is. Just take Bill. Bill's story. Type that. Then on your cell phone, you must have a selfie that you took of yourself, and you just insert that picture underneath Bill's story. And then you write on the bottom of it, Bill Johnson, whatever your last name is, and you print that out and you stick it on the wall in front of you. And now you have the beginning of your book. Now you can change the title of the book, obviously, and you can change the picture afterwards, but now you have the start, the first peg of your book. And then you look at it every single day. And whether you type a word a day, a paragraph a day, but I promise you this, if you have a story to tell, which I know you do because you're on this planet, so you have a story that can help someone else have a better life, and you start doing it, and even though you think, well, I don't really know, blah, 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 as soon as you start typing, I promise your fingers are going to start going like this. And you're going to like, oh my gosh, where the heck did I get all those words from? Because that's what happens to me every time I start writing. And don't worry about who's going to read it. You know, nobody knows me. I'm not famous. No, my aunt had immense joy because I wrote my book. My friend has a better relationship with his father now because I wrote my book. Have I sold millions of copies? No. But it's about the impact. This podcast that Anthony started will have an impact, and I'm sure it already has.
Yes.
Because somebody watching every one of your shows needed to hear something that was said by either you or the guest on the show that day.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But we must start. The whole thing is just, if it's a book, type your first word. If it's your podcast, get the microphone and say your first word. Whatever it is, once you start, the mind goes. I love your story, Anthony, where you said, I started the podcast and I made a dedication to myself. I want to do 31 of these things on Facebook Live, and we'll just go and we'll just see how it goes. And then all of a sudden now you're like, oh, I'm going to get guests from all over the world. Oh, I'm going to start webinars. Oh, I'm going to, it's like, that's what happens, but you just need to start.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, let's turn the tables here.
Yeah.
So let me ask the host a question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
What does it feel for you, the host of this podcast? What is it like for you and the emotions and the experience that you went through and you're going through as you continue to grow in your talents and stuff and creativity? What is it like for you to having started that very first podcast and opened your mouth to say that very first word, not knowing whether anybody else on planet Earth would ever see anything that you just were doing or saying? What was it like in that moment? Do you remember?
It was it was mixed emotions. It was scary. It was challenging. There was a lot of imposter syndrome going on there. But
yes.
But you know what? As soon as I did it, I thought to myself, hey, I'm voicing myself here. I'm speaking my voice. I am speaking my truth, right? I was no longer hiding behind myself, behind the mask. I was speaking the truth. And for years, people had said to me, you talk too much, you need to shut up. And I went, no, I need to speak because I've been given a voice and I need to speak the truth. And from there, it's really just gone from strength to strength to strength, and it's evolved, right? And as you do it more, you get a little bit more polished. You also, the content gets better. And I do a lot of single podcast episodes, but I really enjoy talking to people around the world, and really, because I live in little New Zealand over here. I don't know what it's like living in America. I've been to Las Vegas and I've sung in Las Vegas in a world competition, but I don't know what it's to live over there. So to be able to talk to people across the world and be able to, just really hear the story. It's amazing. Yeah, and I thank you for the story that you have told us and all of the amazing stories you've told us today. And absolutely, if you are out there listening to this or watching this episode and you feel inspired by what Rob shared, then I encourage you to take that first step.
Mm-hmm.
And don't even think twice. Just take the step, because as soon as you take that step, God and universe will give you the rest of the steps to take, and they will hold you. You'll hold your hand, and they will be with you the whole way. So trust yourself, believe in yourself, back yourself, and go get whatever your dream is, and unleash your potential. Discover it and unleash your potential.
Yes.
Rob, this has been an amazing interview, and if people would like to get hold of you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I would go on KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com.
Right.
And that will tell you all about what I'm doing. It has my story there. You can link to my personal website as well. And it also has the link if you've created something or are going to be creating something and finishing something in the next few months, because this festival, we're doing it online this year, and it'll go up to November 16th. So there's still time for people to submit. Go on there and put your project in there, and let us help honor you with a wonderful award. And so that way you can now go out and do what I did once I became an award-winning disc. Now God used that to take me here, to take me there, and that's what happens. And Anthony, with getting the first word out to the podcast, to the whole thing just snowballs. So KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com is the best way to do it. There's a contact page on there as well. And I would love to hear from your audience here. I'd love to get my first email from New Zealand. That would be fabulous. And wherever else is listening around the world as well.
Absolutely. And we'll put those links into the description of the podcast. But before we finish this episode, I'd like to ask you 5 really quick fire questions. So these are questions I ask everyone, and there could be one word or they could just be a short sentence.
Okay.
So how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Making the most out of what you're given. So it's not financial. There's all different levels of success: financial success, relationship success, career success, all of this. Success is taking what you're given. If you're giving a lemon, then you make lemonade. Right? So that's what success is to me. I took my D in English, just wrote the first word, the world provided the rest. I made the most out of what I was given.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Who's been your greatest inspiration and why?
My father.
Mm-hmm.
Just had his pictures all over the place here. He was just a very, very good man. I was very, very blessed that when he took his last breath a couple of years ago, I was literally standing 12 inches from him, and when he took his last breath, and got to see him off on his next journey. And yeah, his deal was he showed up for everybody, all parts of the family, and he treated my sister and I equal. So neither one got treated. It was funny. If my sister needed $500 for a pair of glasses, my dad would just send me a check for $500 because he had given my sister $500. And just like that, it was just treating people equal and just loving them all.
Yeah, thank you for that. My father was an inspiration to me as well, so I can completely relate with you. What is something that you believe in which others may disagree with?
God.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because I share God all the time at my 12-step recovery meetings and stuff, and especially Hollywood. And reality is just being real with my experiences is a lot of, like, for instance, I'll give you this. I have not gotten local media yet to give me any time about the Knoxville Christian Film Festival. However, the Knoxville Horror Film Festival, which is taking place, is getting all kinds of media coverage. And yet, we're in God's country. But somehow people feel that if they have a relationship with God and they share about it, that what's the world going to think of me? And what I found out a long time ago, Anthony, is if you are passionate, just don't be wishy-washy. Whatever you like, I don't care what you like, Buddha, Gandhi, the devil, whatever it is that you just be passionate about it, but don't be wishy-washy.
No.
People know me. When I open my mouth, I'm going to talk about God. I write about him. I'm going to make movies about him because that's what my life has. I have seen way too many coincidences to not believe something much greater than any one of us humans. And yet I have amazing friends who don't want anything to do with God. But they still love me because I don't push anything upon them. I just share my stories. That's it, right? No matter what I love, I never push anything on anybody. I just share my story. This is what happened to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you don't believe it, that's okay. But God is the subject that I would talk about, that others would be like, yeah, okay, buddy, you're kind of a lunatic to believe in something that you can't even see, but that's okay. You just keep going and being that bald guy and walk down the street and have a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Go for it when you have the opportunity. I mean, the reality is this. If I had done different things in my childhood, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now having my greatest life. Now, I don't know how else it would have happened, but there were things along the way where I just did not believe in myself and I didn't move forward. Like right now, I created a thing and I bought the website. I haven't done anything with the website. I haven't had time yet, but I bought it. No Fear Zone. And now I live in the no fear zone. So anything somebody asks me that has any level of intelligence for creativity or something I've never done, I just say, sure, I'll do that. Never done it before, but I'll do it. If everybody wants to laugh at me, that's okay, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I'm the same as you. I'm the same as you. Anything is possible. Nothing is impossible. Because if you take the word impossible and you break the I am, and possible, I am possible. I'm possible. Right? So there is nothing impossible because I'm possible. Thank you for sharing that. Last question. What is one message that you would share with the world?
Your story matters. Right now, where you are, whether you're homeless, whether you live in the biggest mansion in the world, whether you have no money in the bank, whether you're jobless, whether you have all the money that anybody could ever spend in a lifetime, your story matters. And your story needs to be told today. Somebody, while you're out there, if you're homeless, you can help another person out there. Your story inspires others by sharing it, and by sharing your story, you also provide others of us that might have a little bit more. Maybe we have an extra $20 in our pocket to help have a meal with you. And I'll share this really quickly if I can. And with this, I offered a homeless guy in a park in North Hollywood, California, to go over to the hamburger joint a couple of years ago. And I said, would you mind are you hungry? Would you mind if I bought you a burger over at the burger stand over there? And he said to me, I will take your offer only if you will sit and eat with me. He said, I'm a homeless veteran. I'm in this park every day and I never have anybody to talk to. Nobody ever comes and talks to me. He said, so I'll accept your offer if you'll go over and get me my burger and fries and sit and have a meal with me. And sure enough, I went over there, got the burger and came back, and we ended up having a fabulous conversation. And I got to make somebody's day simply by just sitting there. And, the burger and fries were $5. It wasn't like I had like all this money in the world to spend, but I did what I could do at that moment, which is the success we just talked about. What can I do with what I have? I had the time to talk to that gentleman, and you should have seen it. Because people were walking by us looking at me like, don't you know that like a homeless guy? And I'm like, you could see it in their eyes. Like, what is wrong with me for hanging out with that person? But here's the thing, we will end on this, is that every person who is down and out that you might see walking the streets or sleeping. That's somebody's son or somebody's daughter. Imagine if it's your son or daughter, or your dad, or your mom, or your brother, or your sister. That is somebody's family.
Absolutely.
We will all learn to love one another as thyself and do it in a much more loving and kind way. And just remember that not one of those human beings ever said, I can't wait to get up and go be a junkie. Oh, I can't wait till the time that I'm homeless, baby. This is going to be great. I can't wait to get there. No. But people that are down and out, give those of us who might have a little bit more the opportunity to be better human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah. And I remember when I was about 15, 16, I almost became a street kid on the streets of Wellington, which is the capital of New Zealand. And luckily, a friend of mine and his mum took me in, and they were Christians. So I went to live with them and went to church and went on that journey. And I was so grateful that they took me in. Otherwise, I could have been in a completely different place right now. And you've been there. So it is so important to come from a place of love.
Yes.
And love everyone. You don't have to like people, but you should love everyone, and be empathetic and compassionate too. And so, if you're watching this and you're listening to this, thank you for hanging in here for so long and listening to this episode. But there's been so much gold in this episode. I'm sure it's going to completely inspire you. And I just want to remind you to champion your life and champion your greatness. And if you haven't already done so, please share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates, because someone needs to hear this message. And if you haven't also followed this, please follow it so you don't miss any other episodes, and we can get this out to the wider world, because the goal of this podcast is to get it out to the world and to help people cultivate that champion mindset. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Rob, for your time. Have an amazing day.
You as well. Thank you so much. What a blessing. Thank you so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Rob.